Today in Dallas, well. Spain gave France a 2-0 Bastille Day beating to march into the World Cup final. We discuss what De La Fuente did and Didier didn't, and how Spain, in this clash with Mbappe, proved the real dictators. Plus, we get the latest news ahead of Wednesday's other semi-final. Reckon you know who's in that one. Tuesday afternoon in Los Angeles, it's totally at the World Cup, where we've just witnessed Spain having their annual semi-final victory over France. Joining us to discuss that and more, Tom Williams and Tim Spiers. Hello to you both.
Hello, James.
Hello.
Hello.
All good?
Very good.
Warm.
It is warm
It
here.
is warm, but it's not unpleasant.
Yeah. Possibly warm where you are as well. Spain, huh? How about that Spain, Tim?
Yeah, I guess defences do win tournaments, as the old adage goes.
Also scoring 2 goals.
Yeah,
One of them by a
absolutely.
defender.
Yeah, but I guess it kind of felt like the theme of the match was they muzzled this French attack that we've been raving about for weeks on end. Who could stop them? How could they be stopped? Well, just keep the ball.
How's the result going down in France, Tom?
A lot of disappointment, as you'd expect. A degree of bewilderment as to how France could have performed quite so badly. I mean, you go back to the last World Cup and there was a similar level of bewilderment about how they could have played quite so badly for the first 80 minutes of the final against Argentina. On that occasion, they rallied at the end and we had, one of the greatest football matches ever. Today, the rally did not come.
All right. Any L'Equipe player ratings we can
L'Equipe
delight?
player ratings have dropped.
Okay.
Give you some select highlights. Standout performers for France were Jules Koundé, Deo Upamecano, as the American commentator here has been pronouncing his name, and Adrien Rabiot. They got 5 out of 10.
Oh, they got the highest?
Worst performers, Lucas Digne, Ousmane Dembele, Michael Olise, only a 2 out of 10.
Woo.
L'Equipe starman for Spain were starmen, plural even, were Dani Olmo and Pedro Porro.
Okay.
Both got an 8.
Right. I mean, a 2 out of 10, in context, how bad is that for L'Equipe to give you a 2 out of 10?
Pretty bad. Yeah, pretty bad. You don't get many 1s.
Okay.
And you get vanishingly few 0s. You have to do something morally reprehensible to get a 0. So a 2 is bad.
What did Didier Deschamps get?
He got a 3.
Ooh.
He got a 3. Yeah, for his last... I mean, he's obviously still got the third place playoff to come, but...
You'll always have that.
He'll always have that, but his last meaningful match as France coach, and yeah, he's gone out with quite the whimper.
I think that's spot on for Elise. And he might even admit himself that if you chart his performances from the start of last season to now, have we seen him be less effective? So and subbed off, and we said he'd been the difference maker for France, and yeah, he didn't turn up. And where are they now?
Where are they now? We'll get on to the game in more detail very shortly, but perhaps you'd enjoy a moment of the day from Tom and Tim. I know I would. Tom, why don't you begin?
I'm going to go for Pedro Porro's goal.
Oh, yeah.
58th minute of the game. Spain already 1-0 up, and France are not managing to lay a glove on them. And Spain score this beautifully constructed goal. Porro pops a pass in to Dani Olmo, who gets clattered from behind by Deo Upamecano, but manages to flick the ball around the corner. And I think Désiré Doué had just come on for France, should have tracked Porro's run, didn't. Porro runs into the box and very neatly slots the ball past Mike Maignan. And, one of a number of Tottenham players who were enjoying quite successful World Cups after a less than successful season. I mean, Porro is arguably the best right back at the entire tournament. That's the second goal that he scored today. And the moment it went in, you kind of thought, well, this is probably it. And so it proved.
That's the ball game. Tim, what about you? What was your moment of the day stroke? You can have the rest days as well if you want.
I tend to be picking non-football moments for these, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So I went to Taylor Swift's house. Just to see if she was in. She's on honeymoon apparently.
Okay.
But yeah, so I embarked on a Hollywood bus tour.
All right, if you're watching the video version, we now got a picture of... Was that the bus you were on?
That's the bus we were on.
And I'm glad you've clarified that you went on a bus tour, because initially that's just went to a house, had a look.
Yeah.
Normal behaviour.
Yeah, the security guards who are there full time do move you on if you sort of linger.
Okay.
But yeah, we're on this said bus here. and taken up in the Hollywood Hills to see where all the celebs live and, you know, their huge house. It was quite interesting. I found the most interesting part, like, who lives next to who.
Okay.
So Rihanna and Paul McCartney are neighbours.
Right, they've done a song together.
Apparently, which came from
Yeah,
one
they
of them
did,
wandering to each other's house
really?
just to knock on the door.
He wanted a cup of sugar, ended up with a hit record.
We've all been there.
We've all been there.
And the other one would be Tarantino and Sacha Baron Cohen are neighbours, which
Really?
feels like quite a meeting of
Yeah.
minds, you know?
Yeah.
Right, have they ever worked together?
Not yet. Maybe in his last film.
Tom and I live across the corridor, which is where so much of the great content comes from. And you've moved in as well now, Tim. So
Yes. Well, what's going to happen the next few days? So much
one wonders.
creativity in the air.
Any other highlights from the Hollywood bus tours?
Pharrell's $17 million mansion is up for sale.
Okay.
We couldn't get close to it. It's like a huge glass-fronted
In many
building
ways, Tim, in many ways.
with a recording studio. And it was great. I went to the Walk of Fame to see all the the stars on
Oh, right, okay.
the thing as well. There's one particular star which is very scuffed up and has been vandalised.
Which one's that?
An awful lot. That's the president's
Oh,
star.
has he got one?
Yeah, someone took a pickaxe to it a couple of years ago, I think. And,
Really?
it's not in the best state.
Crikey. Well, we should do...
I went for Simon Cowell's, but then security sort of dragged me away.
Okay, there you go. That was moment of the day. A vintage edition, actually, I think, of that. Looking forward to what you come up with after the next set of rest days. But next, let's get on to a proper forensic analysis of how Spain did France this time. Relatively even start in Dallas between France and Spain, and then Luca Dean gives away that penalty, and a team that was set up to defend and hit on the break suddenly found themselves having to change their game plan and didn't. I think, does that sum up kind of what happened to France? Eventually, you mentioned Pedro Porro about an hour in, finishes them off with that lovely team move, but it wasn't even close, was it?
No, it wasn't. And I mean, it's probably an obvious thing to say, but the worst possible start against a team like Spain, who are so good at just dominating possession, but particularly for France. This is the first time at the tournament that France had fallen behind. And in all their previous games, okay, there were games where they had to grind things out, but certainly in the early phases of the tournament, in the group phase and the round of 32, they get the first goal and then they can just pick you off on the counter-attack. And they do that better than almost everyone. But they can't do that if they have the lead. And so conceding such an avoidable goal, Luca Dean, I think everyone watching, you could see the danger. As a cross comes in from the left and Dean the ball springs up off the turf at him and he kind of heads it up and then sort of is kind of like, pulling back his leg for this slow motion clearance down the pitch and, Yamal gets in. And then as soon as Spain had the advantage, everything France did just played into their hands. And I think fundamentally what this France performance spoke to was like the absence of any great idea to their football. Didier Deschamps' basic thinking is you have a very solid defensive structure, you add on 4 of the best attacking footballers in the world, you let them do their thing, and most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it works, but you come up against a proper, coherently structured team who don't take risks even when they're in possession, you're likely to struggle, and I think that's what happened.
Do you think if they hadn't conceded that early penalty, it would have been any different, or was Spain just another level?
France were having the odd moment here and there. They were having those very, very quick sort of transitions in Spain's half. Not proper counter-attacks, because Spain just weren't giving them the room to do that. But there were these little darts that Mbappe was making, and it was sort of relying on Unai Simon to come out and stop them, to be honest. I thought he was one of Spain's best players as a sort of a sweeper-keeper. The penalty obviously changed the game. Neither team had been behind in the tournament. It was an annoying penalty, really. It's not like it's an accidental collision. We don't really want games not almost decided by those in World Cup so far. But he has to give it. He has to give it.
He does absolutely clatter him.
Some numbers about the French performance. First half, they had 2 shots, not on target, and an XG of 0.04. And then after 90 minutes, the mighty French had managed 3 shots on target, but an XG of 0.3, which is their lowest XG in a World Cup match since 1966, since record keeping began. Michael Olise subbed off, so ineffective had he proved. Okay, so what does Spain do to shut France down like that?
I think a lot of it comes to the way that Spain build up when they have the ball, they are very careful not to commit too many players beyond the ball. And something that we've seen with Spain quite a lot of this tournament is they score quite a lot of goals from cutbacks. And that's because the entire team moves up and down the pitch together. They're not just committing players forward and attempting risky passes. And it means that even when they lose possession, they're very well set up to snuff out opposition counterattacks. As Tim was saying, France had a couple of half openings in the first half, but next to nothing in the second half. And I think an awful lot of it is just to do with the very coherent way that Spain manage space, and the way that they are constantly thinking beyond the next turnover of possession. I don't think you saw very frequently at all situations where France turned over the ball and suddenly found themselves with a numerical advantage. Spain just get players around the ball very effectively, and when you're up against a team like France who are so dependent on being able to counter-attack and being able to attack space, it's a really effective way of playing.
I mean, the XG number you mentioned, 0.04, that actually lasted to 63 minutes. So whatever Deschamps said at half-time clearly didn't work, so it felt to me like he was clueless as to how to change the patterns of play. France had like occasional difficulties against deep-line defences for periods of matches earlier in the tournament, but they had so much of the ball and so many avenues of attack that it was always inevitable that they would win. Whereas here, against a fairly deep line defence, they didn't really have the ball. So there was just so few opportunities to attack. And then by the end, they're just taking pot shots from range, and obviously Elise completely subdued. So what else were they going to do?
And the 3 shots on target, the first one arrives in the 81st minute after Unai Simon comes out of his area, Doué fluffs his attempt to lob him, and the other 2 were Ousmane Dembele shots right at the end, the first time that Simon was really worked, and that was the extent of it. And by that point, the game's basically over already. And
they'd both been teams that had dominated possession throughout the tournament, so it was going to be who can keep the ball better and what you're going to do better with it. And I think you'd said, Tom, a few days ago that how do you beat France? Well, one way is you frustrate them and you keep the ball from them.
The question now is how do you beat Spain? One or two of the players that we should highlight beyond Pedro Porro and Simon, who you mentioned, one would be Rodri, who people have commented about how he's not back to the player he was, but he looked something pretty close in this game, no?
Yeah, something approaching his best form. Just his positional sense and his calm sort of reflected the whole team, really. It was a Spanish football performance, not just this Spain team, but that's how Spain win matches. That's how Spain win tournaments. It was a masterclass, and they've been so bullish for weeks on end now, saying that they're going to win this tournament in the lead up to the game, but they've completely backed it up. It was a proper De La Fuente masterclass.
I mean, they play like a club team. I think that's almost the ultimate compliment you can pay them. I mean, there are very good international teams at this tournament who play like international teams. You could probably put France in that bracket. Spain play with a coherence and a sense of what they're supposed to be doing that you find very rarely at this level.
Right.
And also their use of Porro is interesting. I was at the Belgium game for the quarter-final, and Yamal was running down a lot of cul-de-sacs. They would put 2 or 3 on him, exactly as France did today. Again, they would have 2 or 3 on him every time. And I remember thinking to myself during the Belgian game, why is Porro not on the overlap here to really help him out? It felt like a deliberate sort of ploy to hold him back and sort of lull Belgium into false insecurity. Having watched today's game, because it's very similar, because he pops up on the overlap to create their create their opening goal against Belgium. And then here today, we hadn't seen too much of him on the overlap at all. And after 55 minutes, he sort of pops up, and France weren't expecting him to be there because he was the only player that they then didn't track when he plays the 1-2. So it just makes you think, are they deliberately sort of holding him back and making the opposition defence think, no, we don't have to worry about Porro, it's just Yamal, let's get 2 or 3 on him? Because that's the second time in 2 games now where he hasn't done much to start the game and then he pops up to be the difference maker.
Like a Tottenham ruse. Everyone knows he plays for Tottenham. They're probably not going to pay that much attention to him. Oh my God, he's in the penalty area. How's that happened?
Spain making their way through to their second ever World Cup final. They've done it so far without needing, I think, their best player, Lamine Yamal, but they've done it with the strength of the collective, or Oyarzabal, Porro, so many other elements. How do then you beat Spain?
Well, I mean, you've got to score first. I think that would probably be key. I mean, there's the way that they saw the game out, having been ahead today, as they have been throughout the tournament. I mean, we haven't really seen what I'd call weaknesses, but Belgium got some joy. Belgium, the only team to score against them, of course, by being a bit more direct. Doku would often pick up the ball from deep and sort of run at them from a deeper position than France were picking the ball up today. They would also go long to the front man, which is not something that we really saw from France today. So that's a couple of avenues that Belgium had limited joy and created some chances and scored a goal, and did have them on sort of the ropes or leaning against them slightly for parts. But otherwise, you're not really seeing weaknesses.
Who do you think of Wednesday's semi-finalists would give them a bigger problem?
I think Argentina have got a similar style of play. It's not quite as advanced, I don't think, but Argentina like having the ball, like controlling their matches, like to slow the tempo down. England are more similar to France, I think, in that they are more of a counter-attacking team. Harry Kane dropping deep and Bellingham running beyond, and the wide players running beyond as well. So I think it would probably be more interesting as a kind of clash of styles to see Spain v England. But then we saw Spain v England at the last Euros. It's getting boring now.
Well,
so.
Spain v England was the final of the men's Euros. It was also the final of the women's Euros. It was also the final of the Women's World Cup and the men's under-21 Euros. So, yeah, a bit of a run going there.
But it would be more interesting from a sort of a clash of the titans point of view for Spain to play Argentina, I think, because they've both got these incredible tournament records where Argentina under Scaloni, 2 Copa Americas and the World Cup, and Spain now with Euros, Nations League, getting to another final here. And yeah, the only game they've lost in a tournament under De La Fuente was on penalties to Portugal in last year's Nations League. So it's the 2 ultimate tournament teams. I mean, that might make for quite a dull match, but it would be a fascinating head-to-head. Yeah, it would be proper. Yeah. It would be more proper. England are sort of the Andy Murray of the last 4. Let's be honest. They're always sort of there or thereabouts, but they don't win much.
Andy Murray, who famously loves being compared to English sporting institutions, so he'll be well on board with that.
Well, they'd both be great finals. I think we can say that. Which are we more likely to get? We'll have a quick look forward to Wednesday's clash in Atlanta next. One stat I never got in about Spain is a remarkable one. Fabian Ruiz, who's just won back-to-back Champions League titles with Paris Saint-Germain, if he's called up for Sunday's World Cup final, that will be his 50th cap for Spain. The remarkable bit of this is that they have not lost a single one of those matches. Of course, they don't lose very much. They've equalled now Italy's record of 37 straight games unbeaten.
Yes, something like that.
I think the final is where they would beat it. If they win, they're going to be facing either England or Argentina. So that's happening in Atlanta on Wednesday. Freshly arrived there in the state capital of Georgia is Jack Pitt-Brooke. A short time ago, he spoke to us. Jack, welcome to the show. So you're in Atlanta, ready for the semi-final. You've been with England through the highs of Mexico City, through the heat of Miami. How much do you think is left in the tank for these players?
Not a huge amount, I think, for either team. I think that both teams probably come into this physically and mentally exhausted. England's games have been pretty dramatic, all 3 of the knockout rounds. Argentina's games have been even more so, 2 of them going to extra time. And I think this is going to have a huge bearing on Wednesday's semi-final, because I'm not sure how much either of these 2 teams still have left to give.
Has Thomas Tuchel calmed down yet?
Oh yeah, he was very calm. We're looking forward to his press conference, which is in a few hours. But everything I've heard suggests that he's pretty relaxed. I think that the issue after the Norway game, I think both him and Bellingham were both in a state of extreme emotional and physical exhaustion, especially Bellingham, when they gave their post-match interviews. And I've written about this for The Athletic. I think that everything that they said has to be judged in that context. I don't think that there's necessarily a big rift or a big issue in the camp just because they both gave some, fairly opinionated interviews under intense pressure at the end of the Norway game.
Jack, there's been a lot talked about the atmosphere pre-game there and the security risks and that. What have you seen so far in Atlanta?
I've seen quite a lot of England fans, probably a few more Argentina fans. I haven't seen any issues. I think everybody is maybe a little bit on edge because of all the obvious factors that go towards this. I'm not sure how the stadium will handle it, given the lack of segregation and the fact that fans will be mixed in. But I hope it goes smoothly, and the limited amount that I have seen so far suggests that at the moment things are going smoothly.
On the field, what do you think is going to be key in this game, Jack?
I think that I'm a bit worried about whether Argentina might come in almost over-motivated. I mean, they're so up for this game, and of course, it's a World Cup semi-final, of course you're going to be up for it. But I want that they seem to have these big emotional highs and lows in their games, and that could be incredibly powerful, but at the same time, it's a strength that can also become a weakness. And I wonder if they do get a bit too overcommitted, if England might be able to pick them off. That said, England have in every game they've played so far, England have had a really bad patch, and they haven't been punished. And I think there's every possibility that if they have one of those bad 20 or 30 minutes on Wednesday where they lose their composure, it's totally plausible that Messi will just go bang, 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 and suddenly it's 3-0. So I think this is going to be a chaotic game, much less controlled than the first semi-final, and I think it's very hard to make predictions about it.
I think a lot of people would see England as favourites for this game, the better team, but then Leo Messi, so you never know. But what do you think? Second World Cup final ever for England on Sunday?
I'd make England very marginal favourites. I think England probably have the physical edge, by which I don't mean, charging into tackles. I mean the fact that England have just got more younger, fitter players who can run more, and I suspect I'm sure that England's plan is that will eventually make the difference in the end, and maybe they will be able to grind Argentina down. That said, the Messi factor is such a unique thing, right? To have this brilliant player at the end of his career and the whole team cohering around him, that I wouldn't be surprised at all if Messi scores a hat-trick and Argentina walk it. I think everything is almost literally nothing would surprise me tomorrow. I think everything is on the table.
Jack Pitt-Brooke. So on the one hand, England are probably the better side, but on the other hand, Leo Messi. It's about the size of it, right?
Yeah, Argentina are such a fascinating team and seem determined to live through so many different types of nail-biting circumstance in the knockout rounds of this tournament. So against Cape Verde, they tried going ahead and being pegged back, having to win at the death. Against Egypt, they tried falling 2-0 down and then having to come from behind and win it at the death. In the quarterfinal against Switzerland, they did the usual thing of going ahead, not playing, and then needing a worldie from Julian Alvarez in extra time to get themselves out of trouble. And you kind of feel like, at some point, surely they're just going to stop doing that. They're going to score first, take control. They seem to really relish having their opponent at arm's length, but not doing anything more to put the game to bed. I think an awful lot of their sense of footballing identity comes from their ability to do that. We're only one goal up, but we don't need another goal because we are just better on the ball. They have all these players with very similar morphologies and playing styles, just knocking the ball around together. And every now and again that backfires on them because they keep letting in goals when they should have put games out of reach.
The kind of player that they don't have, everybody says, is a wide player, a Di Maria, something like that. And supposedly, if you're England and you're looking how to beat them, that's what you want to do, attack them down the flanks. Tim?
I thought you were going to say Dan Burn then when they're playing, but I don't know.
Everyone wants Dan Burn.
Well, if we do see Dan Burn tomorrow, then that bodes very well for England, obviously, because he'll only be coming on if England are winning, you would assume. But yeah, I think in terms of England's prospects of beating them, they need to set the agenda in the match. They don't want to let Argentina dictate the tempo and get their passing game going. So I think in terms of playing with pace and width and this sort of brisk, direct style, Switzerland had joy with Dan and Doy, particularly in the second half, little combination plays and 1-2s. So I have seen a school of thought that Marcus Rashford is better suited to the Dan and Doy role, as they're now calling it, as opposed to Gordon, who gets to the byline. But in terms of the starting 11, there are quite a few selection issues for Tuchel, mostly around fitness. Okay. You can say it's a sort of World Cup semi-final and you've got to throw everything at it and put your best team in. even if they're sort of 70% fit. But if you've got Reece James at right back and Rice in midfield and Saka as the right forward, all kind of not at their best, I think because England need to be quick, direct, and dictate the tempo in this game, I'd be concerned about having a few players who aren't that fit. So they're going to need honesty from the players, I think, in making these decisions as to how fit they are. You can't have a situation where Declan Rice plays as he did the other night when he was walking through treacle. Clearly shouldn't have started that match. He'd been ill for a few days, and it almost sort of cost England in that game with sort of the sluggish first half that they had going behind, etc. They can't do that to Argentina. Have teams who aren't fit, have players who aren't fit, and they're sort of running through treacle again, and Argentina get ahead because that's how they'll win the game. So there are big decisions to make.
And what does he do about Messi?
Hope for the best.
I imagine that there's got to be something more specific there.
Yeah, well, I mean, England have got a lot of exceptionally mobile central midfielders. Obviously, there is that slight concern about Declan Rice, but him and Elliot Anderson working in concert in front of the back four, that is the area where Messi operates. We know that he drifts out to the right quite a lot, so Nico O'Reilly will have a job. He's another very athletic player, so I mean they shouldn't be surprised by how Argentina seek to use Messi, but Messi just has this ability to find space where there shouldn't be any, and like the fact this is his first ever game against England, which is incredible.
Why do Argentina have to worry about not one but two 6-goal scoring threats? The first time that any team has ever had in the World Cup 2 players reach 6 goals. Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham, with Bellingham very much the man of the moment. How do Argentina deal with him? Can they deal with him?
Well, he's got this sort of free role where he's making his own runs into the box and ghosting in at the last minute. And yeah, if you're keeping too much of an eye on Kane, then you let your eye off Bellingham and sort of vice versa. It's a heck of a match to be excited about. It's amazing how almost every game these two teams play is of huge historical significance,
Right.
Even the friendly they played 21 years ago is probably the best England friendly of this century in Geneva, when they beat them 3-2 with 2 late goals from Michael Owen. I think what we can't underestimate how impossible it's proved to beat Argentina at major tournaments. There's only Saudi Arabia that have managed it since the pandemic. So yes, England have probably got a level to go more than Argentina have, but that still doesn't mean they're going to win for me.
But Saudi Arabia did it, so you're saying there's a chance. Is it going to be another classic, do you think, Tom?
In a way, I find it more interesting than the Spain-France game. I know everyone was saying, this is the real final, Spain v France. But the fact that England and Argentina have both kind of like scrapped their way through this tournament, have had these moments of real jeopardy. And not just, they were ahead and they conceded a goal and they had to sort of shore up. They've had to come from behind. They've had to, they've had to cling on for dear life. And, the history between the teams as well. To me, it feels more... I just feel like there are more kind of subplots to this than there were to Spain-France, which had plenty of its own subplots, but it feels like there's more around this.
A lot of people felt Spain-France could have been the final, maybe the 2 best teams at the tournament, but this certainly feels way more interesting as a clash, and we'll see how it all plays out. You'll be back with us, might have 1 or 2 other guests as well, when we return straight after England-Argentina live. We'll be doing a live stream. It'll be on our YouTube channel. We do live streams on a Sunday night with the Premier League, but it's quite a big game. We'll do one here and we'll do one after the final as well. So I'm guessing that'll be around half an hour after the final whistle to maybe 45 minutes or so. Do keep across our YouTube channel, and then here we are. We'll pop up. Maybe the skunk will join us too. Who can say?
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
Live skunk spotting.
Live skunk. Anyway, that's all Wednesday, whatever time zone you're in. For now, that's it for this Totally at the World Cup. So many thanks to Tom and to Tim and to Jack Pitt-Brooke, who joined us earlier, the production crew, and you. See you tomorrow. Enjoy the game. From all of us here, it's goodbye.